We're here to talk about travel retail industry recruitment specifically and what makes it so different perhaps to other parts of the retail food chain, so to speak. Can you give us 3 qualities which you believe are the most important when people need to recruit for the travel retail industry specifically?
Absolutely, Charlotte. So I think that customer service should be a unconditional commitment to consistency in customer service, whether you're in the domestic market or whether in travel retail. However, in travel retail, it's pretty special because knowledge is key. You need to know your products, of course you do, but you also need to understand the terminal, the passengers, the flights, the passenger flow, the countries they're flying to, so you can really embrace cultural awareness to take that customer service to another level. But also I think there's the consistency, and Joe touched on this earlier. You know, passenger or customer shopping in a luxury environment should have that same level of customer service to somebody picking up a travel plug, for example. And also then there's work ethic. You know, be on time, enjoy what you do, but get there early because the queues right now going through security are at an all-time max. So it's really important that people bear that in mind when they're getting to the terminal. And also resilience. You know, there can be difficult passengers, but the customer's always right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Joe, you spoke about consistency earlier and how difficult that is going to be to ensure at this particular point in time when there is, shall we say, travel chaos at a lot of airports around the world.
Yes, Charlotte, and I think the sad thing about this, and it will come back, is that the customer service function's been sacrificed because of the need of staff. I think, particularly in travel retail. So the emphasis has been more on actually we need the staff to operate the floor rather than the customer service, but that will come back. It always does.
I was going to say, Tim, from your perspective, what do you think, should be the 3 qualities that you would perhaps select from, learning from people at department stores such as Liberty here? What are the sort of 3 most important things to remember when you're recruiting people?
I'll try and top what Heidi said, but it won't be easy because I think they were brilliant points. I think definitely resilience is very, very important. It's, this is a very difficult market, and particularly with the airport queues and the passenger problems that we're having at the moment. People, get frustrated, and you've got to have a certain way to deal with people, a certain tact and diplomacy. I think that's very important. And I agree about consistency as well. Consistency is very, very important. Just to stay in the role, keep growing in that role, keep developing as a person. I think those are certainly the most important things.
And the retail landscape is evolving all the time at the moment and definitely accelerated in the last couple of years, domestic retail as well as in travel retail. And we saw a lot of contactless services coming in. The beauty industry was very innovative in this time, and they produced some very interesting contactless, ingenious devices that, meant that perhaps staff interaction wasn't so important anymore. And that made it easier for stores to continue working, really. But now that obviously things are relaxing, customer and staff interaction must become more important. I guess that you would probably believe that yourself.
I very much believe that, but I also think it's an interesting point because I think in the past there's always been that kind of fear from using any sort of digital and contactless thing and traditional retail, and I think we need to embrace these new ways. I think it has to be a marriage of the two, and I think there's no reason that great retail people can't be trained to work with any kind of digital things that are going on at the moment. I think anything like that can kind of react and increase ROI across brands is absolutely fantastic, and I welcome any digital innovations and changes.
And putting you on the spot a little bit, are there any in particular that you think work better than other things? So for instance, magic mirror technology, where you can obviously try on, say, a lipstick in the mirror and see what the shade looks like, or there's obviously these atomizers that just now are able to emit this the aroma of the perfume without you obviously having to touch it at all. Are there things do you think that work better than others?
I think definitely the atomizers, because I think as the world moves more towards sustainability, you don't see these fragrance cards spilt everywhere and left everywhere. I think it's a much better way of working. But I think anything that kind of adds to that experiential feeling for visitors and for passengers is very important, as long as it's adding to that special retail vibe, so they can feel that, and it's not taking away from it. Because the worst thing you can have is a standard digital table that somebody has to access, put information in, and it's quite scary for passengers as well as for the as well as for our our retail staff. Anything that adds to it that's kind of promoting the self and the experiential is brilliant.
Absolutely. We're talking about brand ambassadors in travel retail now, and again, moving back to consistency. Sometimes you'll have an absolutely superb interaction with a brand ambassador who's very knowledgeable on a product and a brand, and it's sort of, you remember that more than perhaps some other interactions that you have. Now, when you're sort of talking to brand ambassadors, what sort of things do you have to train them up in and teach them in order to become next level brand ambassador?
Sure, of course. Well, it all starts with recruitment. We have a very specific way of recruiting. We're a bespoke recruitment company, so one size doesn't fit all. So it depends on the brand that we're working with. We will go out and recruit specifically for the brand needs. And I think that's a point of difference and part of our DNA. However, we have an obligation then to keep these people motivated, excited, develop their skill, develop their talent. So we have what we call Artisan Talent School. So before anybody even hits the shop floor, they're job ready and they have the confidence. Of course, for me, learning is ongoing. So we really work with the brands and our brand partners to make sure that they're engaged and they know what's new on the market, upskill in whether it's makeup, fragrance, skincare, liquor. So it's very, very important to the heart of Artisan People.
It sounds like a complicated, multi-layered process, but one that's necessary if you're going to be the best in what you guys do, which obviously is handcrafted recruitment is what you guys want to deliver. Finally, I was going to ask you a question about what you think travel retail, how it needs to adapt in order to remain relevant for consumers today. Have you got any good tips again for the industry and how it can move forward?
I think it's about still concentrating on the customer service element for passengers, and it's not just knowledge is important. Yeah, we want brand ambassadors to know their product. I go up to a counter of beauty, I'm going to spend a lot of money on skincare. Sure, I want that person, I want the counter to be manned. I don't want to have to look through drawers, and that we've all been there with that. But I also want the extra bit. So when I want to go on and buy a plug, or I want to buy some chocolates, it's about my representative going a little bit further, maybe carrying my basket. And I have had this, and it's been the most memorable of experience. Rather than going, you've got to go there, round there on the right or left, they've actually taken my basket and walked with me to my next venue that I'd like to shop in. And sometimes further on than that to the till. It's those bits of difference that will keep the shop in an airport relevant. It's keeping the excitement, the joy and the magic there.
And actually, Jo, on a point of counters being manned, obviously recovering from the pandemic, a lot of the brands decided not to staff all of their counters. Well, as a passenger, as a customer, when customers are spending a lot of money, I think there's nothing like that engagement from a consultant or a brand ambassador, really understanding and knowing their product and link selling to, upsell. I think that can only come from human interaction, engagement.
Absolutely.
But even if you're buying chocolate, how much fun is it if you've got someone standing there with a tray to try?
Absolutely.
You can enhance the whole experiential offering, and you've got passengers with children. So that whole chocolate fun comes out. So any area of your shop can be made more fun if it's staffed and the staff provision's done in the right way.
Sampling's not always the easiest thing to facilitate in an airport, but it is definitely coming back, and we know how much better it is to introduce, to convert passengers to buy. So again, is that another layer of skill that you have to build on with someone to obviously do the sampling? It sounds like a straightforward task, but actually I can imagine it's not as simple as it looks.
Depends what kind of sampling it is. And this goes on to the whole Artisan People offering. We look for people with personality, with great customer service skills, and they can come from anywhere, but they are a certain type of person, and we can talk a bit more about that, about how we recruit and look for our staff. I'm sure Heidi's got a lot to say about that.
I totally agree with that. I think one thing that we are very, very strong at is bringing people in to travel retail that have not had the opportunities before. bringing people from a whole variety of different employment backgrounds and giving them a chance that they never had before. And that really makes us happy in our work and what we do to transform the industry.
Mm-hmm. But I think what's also useful to understand is that, you know, whilst everybody is trying to get people through the ID centre, the PAR system, you know, pilots were going back to work, stewardesses were going back to work, we were going back to work, everyone was going back to the airports at the same time. So we were really challenged with getting people through with their security pass, and, you know, that remains, but, you know, hopefully that will turn around sometime soon.
Mm-hmm. Things will hopefully get easier as we learn to recover from this pandemic. So Artisan People is a multifaceted company, lots of different divisions, and obviously I wanted to know what attracted Artisan People to the travel retail industry.
Thank you, Charlotte. We were invited to come into the travel retail industry to bring something that hasn't been delivered before, and what really attracted me was that, coming from a museum and exhibition and attraction background, airports, terminals are attractions in themselves. They're destinations as well as places that people fly from and journey to. And that I found very interesting, because the amount of dwell time that passengers have to spend within airports, the amount of things that it can do, it could be like going to an attraction or a museum. And there are so many things to do. So for me, that made it very interesting.
Absolutely, and a lot of these airports are actually turning themselves into museums and art galleries. They have special sections that they've actually built specifically for that. So yes, the merging of realms is definitely happening.
They're beginning to understand their own heritage, I think, because they've got a lot of ideas. They've been around for quite some time. I think there's a great sense of that. And certainly as we recover from the pandemic, there's a great sense of self and a sense of history where we can become and how we can find a partner that going forward.
Well, I've had a wonderful time talking with all of you, and also Julian.
Thank you, Charlotte.
And it's been great being at the Liberty Department Store in London, talking of attractions in themselves. This is obviously one of the greats.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing what Artisan People can bring to the travel retail industry going forward. Thank you very much.
Charlotte.
Thank you very much.